I feel like it's one of those days that if you had a cup of coffee, go get yourself another one. I'm gonna do the same really quick, and we'll meet back here in about 10 seconds, okay? Okay, be right back. Welcome everybody to the next installment of the Anno 1800 Beginner's Guide series for 2024. Thank you all for being here and obviously commenting on the videos and telling me how these videos have been helping you. It's really important for me to know. And in this particular episode, I would like to discuss one of the DLCs because I think that it's actually pretty relevant going forward if you're interested in engaging into getting some of the DLCs, and it will definitely be very important to know this. And I want to try to give as fair as a rating and go through it as much as I possibly can so you guys can make the decision whether you actually want to take that leap and get it yourselves. Today we're going to be discussing the Bright Harvest DLC. Now the Bright Harvest DLC came out in 2020, so it's actually been some time, and what it does is three things. Firstly, it adds silos to your animal farms. The next thing is it adds tractor barns to all of your farm fields, and then it also upgrades your oil harbor from a large to a grand. I will show you the latter two in another playthrough, and I'll attach it to this video so it's going to be all in one. But we can discuss the actual animal silos right here because we have the capability of doing this in Roma right now. So as you can see, we put some here in blueprint mode and pretty much discussing it as an overview once more for everybody. Your pig farm, by default, if you have nothing else working to it, if you haven't adjusted the working conditions, which I wouldn't really recommend doing if you're a new player in order to navigate this, because it really focuses a lot on happiness and whatnot, is going to produce 1 ton of pigs every minute. Okay, so this is just your base. When it comes to the sheep farm, it'll process 1 ton every 30 seconds. What the silos pretty much do for you is they make it possible to add an additional 100% onto your current productivity, essentially making it 200% productivity for every single farm that they're a part of. So if the pigs are processing 1 ton per minute with the silo, it'll be 30 seconds. And that's one thing that I want to show everybody right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build up this grain farm, because you're going to need a grain farm in order to actually activate a silo. And for all intents and purposes, I'm going to get rid of the silo blueprint right over here, and I'm going to show you how to get that back. Click on your farm, and it will be this little option right down here. It'll cost you 1,000 coins, 20 timber, and 10 bricks. So it's a little bit steep. I guess early game it can be a little bit steep. Later on, this is going to be a piece of cake for you. So you'll just go ahead and click that, and you can either put it like actually down like this, or you can blueprint it. But for this particular example, we're going to actually put it down. So now, because you also have a quest that comes with it, it automatically activates when you reach a certain point with your workers if you do have the Bright Harvest DLC. What happens here is that the silo is going to want grain in order to function. And right now, because this warehouse is kind of a little bit, it's waiting for the other ones to load up before it can get what it requires. We're just going to wait for this guy to get the grain, and he's going to deliver it to this silo. And you'll notice that it does say missing goods because it's not there yet, right? And your pig farm is still working at a base 100, and that's it. So now he's taking this over in a second, hopefully. And he's taking about 5 grain, which the good thing is that this thing processes grain 1 every 5 minutes. So you can have like 1 farm work for so many of these things. It's unbelievable. So now we have the silo working. You'll get this. The farmer's saying that good job. Probably some of the NPCs might throw their lot in and say like, oh my goodness, you've done so well for yourself, my lord.
Oh, I'm always busy, Duck. A field don't tend itself.
A way that you know that this is working for you is that the silo down here is actually going to have these things pop up for you. And right now, as you can see, it's an additional 100%, as I mentioned before. And now we're producing pigs a lot faster. this is one benefit of getting Bright Harvest DLC, and this can work with every single one of your animal farms. It's just phenomenal. It's a lot better to get something like this going instead of having multiple farms like this, because right now this thing is essentially carrying 2 pig farms. So we can essentially get rid of these 2 and we'll be fine. You can go over here to the chart right over here and we're still even. If we were to build the second one up,
you're flourishing.
Oh, there he is. He's saying it. Oh, acknowledges your first silo. Hey, Archie, we already built one, man. We're going to wait for this one to also get grain, but at the same time, you have to be mindful because your grain stores are also going towards your bread production if you're still doing it that way. So always, 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 what I like to do is put one grain farm for these particular farm fields and your animal farms. It makes life so much easier for you. You don't have to worry about this one going anywhere else. It's just going to go here. Makes it very, very simple. We can also do the same when it gets to our sheep farms, so they're going to work a lot better. So we'll go ahead and build 2 of those. And that means we can actually get rid of these 2. And by getting rid of buildings, it means you don't need to have as many workers, or in this case farmers, actually working on those particular fields, because you're putting them somewhere else, right? They essentially can be upgraded. You can go back into your town, find a little spot to say, like, okay, I'm going to upgrade this part now, and you'll have enough to do it, and you'll have some more workers too thrown in there. It's just a win-win. So right now, I definitely said, like, if you're on the fence with getting Bright Harvest, this is a good way of going about it and explaining to you that this is what it does. Okay, so right now we're waiting for that silo to activate, which it will. These things normally are going to be working every 30 seconds. With the silo working, that's 15 seconds. And even if you go over to the production chain and we look at wool, right now we are producing 13. So we'll have a 5 additional one every minute to the work clothes, which, as you can clearly see, we're going to need more work clothes. So this is going to be perfect for us. We can just put down another one of those. We'll have enough wool coming in for not only the sales, if you're using the sales, but also for this. So let me go ahead and shift gears a little bit over to how the tractors work. Welcome, everybody, to the grand metropolis that is my version of Constantinople. And you're looking at the Theodosian walls. No, it's not the exact same, obviously, but it was the best I could do. And this comes from our Anno 1800 Expert Campaign series. If you're interested in checking that out, the link is in the description to the playlist. There is also a beauty build episode on this particular settlement, and I will actually put that at the very end of the video, so if you'd like to check it out, you can just click it, easy peasy. But there's a reason why I brought us here. As you can see, all of these glorious farm fields. So much yellow, right? These are all of our grain farms, and all of them, for the most part, except for one, have been optimized with a tractor barn and a fertilizer silo. Now, the fertilizer silo looks very similar to the other silo we just saw, but that comes from another DLC pack, and we're not going to talk about that one right now. But I wanted to show you, definitely not accepting that. What I wanted to show you is what the tractor barn looks like, what it does, and how to get it going, along with what the Grand Oil Harbor looks like as well. So normally when you put down a farm like this, it's only going to be at 144 maximum with the farm fields, okay? What tractors do are, number one, boost productivity by 100%, easy flat, so then it'll go up to 30 seconds as opposed to a minute of processing time. The next thing is it also increases the amount of farm fields you have, but I believe it's about 50%. Now, we have the capability of building one here, and it is about the exact same way of building one of these that it is like a silo, an actual silo from what we just saw. But the problem with this one is, and while we're not going to get into it too much, it's going to require you to also have steam motors. Steam motors is one of the intermediate to advanced chains, so we're not going to be discussing how those are actually made here. That'll come in subsequent guides. When I explain it to you, it'll be a lot easier, of course. But what we're going to do here is we're actually going to click on this tractor barn, and I have a little opening over here anyway, so we're just going to go ahead and put it right down next to the grain farm. And as you can see, we now have 216 of 216 farm fields to work with here. But there's a problem, okay? The tractor barn, similar to the silo, needs something in order for it to function. In this case, it's not grain, it's fuel. The way that fuel works in Anno 1800 is you need to deliver oil to a fuel station, and then the fuel station processes it and sends it over to the tractor barn. In this particular situation, this is where I have decided to build the fuel station here in Constantinople. And the reason why I built it here is because the solid green goes all the way over to here. So that means every single one of these farm fields are going to have fuel. And you can actually see some of these guys driving with some fuel right over there. The good thing about the tractor barns are that they go through fuel very slowly. It is the same across the board when it actually comes down to silos and tractor barns. They processes 1 ton every 5 minutes. So don't worry about this. You can have so many of these farm fields optimized with tractors, man. It is unbelievable. And it helps out so much. Reduce the amount that you're going to need as far as fields are concerned, the number of farmers that you're going to need to actually process the goods, islands that you're going to have to devote to this, because some of the farm fields that you're going to have to build have horrible process times, absolutely abysmal, and this helps significantly. But there's only one way to really get the oil to these fuel stations, and that is via train. You can't have a warehouse like this, okay? You can't put a warehouse and for them to deliver into the warehouse. That's not how this works, okay? What you're gonna have to do is you have to build an oil harbor. I need to caution you immediately, okay? Right now, we are not going to be discussing how oil harbors work. We're not going to be discussing how trains work at all, because it requires a guide in and of itself. It can get very confusing and very, very, very daunting. I don't want to impose that on anybody right now this early on in the guide. But all you need to know is that the oil harbor, and in this case, it is a grand oil harbor that came from the Bright Harvest DLC, provides us with 7 trains in total. And when you build the train tracks, you're essentially guiding these trains to not only your oil refineries to process oil to bring it back here, and sending it to your fuel stations in order for them to actually process it into fuel. The oil harbor actually counts as an oil storage. If you do not have these oil stores next to it, this thing on average will have and house around 500 tons of oil, which is substantial unless you're using power stations, which is a whole different thing in and of itself. But this is the building that comes with the Bright Harvest DLC. It is the maximum version of this. It's the highest you can go. Before that, this would only reach large. Okay, so do bear in mind, this is the highest you can go, and it comes with Bright Harvest. So then it will bring the oil, over to the fuel station. The fuel station will process the oil into fuel once every 15 seconds. And once it's actually full up, it just keeps it. 20 is the maximum it can go. And it'll start sending it to the tractor barns that it needs to when the need arises. So you're pretty much solid on letting this work as is. It'll do just fine. And I think a final rating when it comes to this particular DLC is probably a 9 out of 10. I recommend getting this because it's going to help you out so much. The only problem with it is the learning curve when it comes to getting those steam motors. Steam motors, anything advanced after a certain point, kind of makes your brain like, what the heck is going on? That's something that we're going to try to minimize with these guides. I know there's a bunch out there, but like I said, I'm going to be pulling in my own little version on how to navigate through these. I will teach you how to do this. I wanted to just give you a little bit of a heads up on what Bright Harvest can do for you. In the early game, definitely it's fantastic with your animal farms. You don't want to be spamming that many, okay? It's not ideal. You can just get a silo, put it to one of those pig farms. It's going to work a lot faster. The vulgarity level will go down because the silos don't actually increase the vulgarity. It just is a flat buff, okay? And the flat buff is what we're looking for. So I hope you guys found this informative. Obviously, we didn't go too much in depth when it came to the oil route. That is something for later. It can get very confusing. There are also ornaments that come with this particular pack. So there's stuff for farmers, there's stuff for workers. It's actually a pretty good one. Overall, solid 9 out of 10. I would definitely say it's a good one. There are some areas I find that can be a little bit better, but that's my own personal gripe. I recommend it personally to get Bright Harvest. Let me know if you're going to get it, and let me know if this was a little bit of a good heads up on what it is, and we can go in depth with it later on if you guys so choose when we discuss the oil routes and such in the future. So until then, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully you learned something as well. Please consider like, commenting, subscribing, hitting that bell button, sharing it with your friends. I very much appreciate all the help in growing the channel. Very active at it, as you can clearly see. And I will catch you on the next episode, my Rentians.